Evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest meeting of the Audit and Standards Committee. I've received apologies from Rebecca Lewis, and I assume that you're substituting for AFL.
No.
No. You're. Have we got anybody? Is anybody substituting? No. Right. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other apologies? I think.
Anthony Harold, the monitoring officer.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Item number 2 then is declarations of interest. Does anybody need to make us aware of any pecuniary interest that they may have in relation to the items of business? No, thank you. Item number 3 then, minutes of the previous meeting that can be found on pages 3 to 6 of your agenda pack. Are there any issues in relation to the accuracy of these minutes anybody needs to bring to our attention? No? Okay, thank you. Take that as a true and accurate picture of the meeting. Item number 4 then is the Q3 internal audit update for the year 24-25, and Alex has come to give us a run through that. So whenever you're ready, Alex, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to present to the committee an update on internal audit's progress against the audit plan at the end of Q3. Since our Q2 progress report, preparation for all audits has commenced. We've got 7 audits having agreed start dates during Q4. 5 draft reports have been issued, and the draft audit opinion for each of these can be seen in the table at section 2.4. In December, the final report for the council tax audit was issued. An adequate assurance opinion was awarded for this, and a total of 4 recommendations were made. And a breakdown of those recommendations can be seen in section 2.2. A summary of progress against the audits in the plan is shown at section 2.4. And as you can see, all audit opinions so far, including provisional opinions for these audits in draft, are positive opinions. Moving on to counter fraud, we've received a further 3 fraud referrals, each being triaged and reported to the council for further investigation. We've also had 1 whistleblowing referral, which our fraud audit manager is currently investigating. We're not going to provide any details on this at this time. However, the outcome of our investigation will be provided to a future committee meeting. By the end of December, we had not received the results of the NFI data matching exercise. Some results are starting to be received now, so we will be looking to these as soon as we get them. During December, I also emailed all officers with overdue recommendations for an update on these. Responses were received in all instances, and this resulted in either a revised implementation date being provided, or in one instance, the recommendation was marked as implemented. As you can see in table the table at 2.14, there are no recommendations showing as overdue at this point. And that concludes my update, and I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have any questions on that report? Okay, Mike.
Table on 2.2, which is the council tax report, there's 1 recommendation that's rated high.
Yes.
Is that high risk? I'm asking rather than telling. Is it high risk?
Yes, it's like a high risk priority.
Can you just expand on what that actually is? Because I don't particularly want you to pull the whole report apart, but can you tell us what
the findings regarding that recommendation? Sorry, yeah. So that was around debts being written off without a secondary check, and there were some instances where debts had been written off without prior approval, so like retrospective approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Do you have any other questions in relation to this report? No? Okay. The progress very much. Alex. Item number 5 then is the corporate risk management report for Q3. The absence of Anthony Sarah's going to go through that for us. So whenever you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Q3 report for the corporate risk, and it highlights that at the time of writing the report, there was 6 overdue risks. These included one in facilities management area, which related to stock condition survey of parks and playgrounds. There was one in operational services area relating to business continuity plans. Democratic services in relation to failure of members to make informed decisions. So there's a piece of work on scrutiny there. And then there was 3 in the legal and governance section relating to breach of legislation, inadequate staff levels, and bribery and corruption. I can confirm that since the writing of this report, all those 6 have now been reviewed and addressed, so they are no longer overdue. It was just a bit of a timing error. Then, secondly, there are 4 risks that have had increased ratings. The first one being in relation to problem with staff recruitment and retention. If you recall, we discussed this at the last Audit and Science Committee meeting, and it was around the property services team and the environmental health team. I can also confirm that as of last week, there was a recruitment to the property services team, and previously to Christmas, there was 3 appointments to the environmental health team. So again, that's been addressed, and that you should see that risk level coming down for next time. There's Wally's Quarry. So this is in relation to the inability to enforce the abatement notice. As you're aware, there's a legal case going on at the moment. There's been a number of increased complaints, obviously, over the last sort of few months. So that kind of takes account of that. And then there was 2 in relation to CCTV. So for, I think it's a period of 2 or 3 days, CCTV monitoring actually went down. It was in relation to the building of the new car park. The structure was kind of interfering with some of the signals. So that's obviously been addressed now, and that's all back up and running. So it was just 2 or 3 days where that CCTV was actually down. And then finally, there are 2 new risks that have been added to the register. The first one is in relation to civil emergency risks, and it's cyber attacks on services. And the second one is also in relation to civil emergency risks, and that is to do with chemical, biological, and radiological small-scale attacks. Happy to take any questions if anyone's got any on that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions?
Just glad I've still got my NDC suit. I'll be fine for a month. Then I'll be struggling. No, I've got no questions.
No. Does anybody else have any questions? Joan?
I'm just saying, very tongue-in-cheek, is that, Anita's very tongue-in-cheek, is that biological and radiological attacks? I take it it's outside the scope of Wally's Quarry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, if there are no other questions, are we happy to note the various things as listed on the agenda? And obviously, finally, the risk of anything being materialising may be mitigated, but the likely impacts may not change. So I think we understand that. So thank you, Sarah. Okay. So we'll move on then. So item number 6 then is the external audit findings report for 2023-2024. And we have our new friends from KPMG here to give us some detail on that whenever you're ready, please.
Yeah, thanks. Not often auditors get referred to as friends, so make sure so the official record. Thanks. So we've got, as you said, Chair, you've got the 4 I think 4 reports in the pack. So there's the management rep letter, which I think comes under the headline agenda, and then there's 3 reports, which are the audited annual report, the ISA 260, which is effectively our finalisation report, and then the value for money risk assessment. But if we could just take them in a slightly different order, because I think it'll make more sense from a chronological perspective. And Rob and I will kind of work as a bit of a double act, if that's okay, to present it to you in light of the fact that you've had some of this content through this committee previously. So the first one I'd like to take is on page 121 in the public pack that I've got, which is the risk assessment, the value for money risk assessment. So this is work that we've done in line with our responsibilities to consider value for money at the authority for the year 23-24, so it's up to March 2024. So we have responsibilities to consider arrangements in place for value for money against 3 what are called domains. So that's financial sustainability, governance, and then the third one's a kind of catch-all. It's called securing economy, efficiency, effectiveness in the use of resources. Effectively, how you get the most bang for your buck out of the resources that you have available. So the way we approach this is we follow the NAO's code of practice. We gather information from the finance team and also from other sponsors across the authority who provide us with evidence to demonstrate the arrangements that are in place, very much focused on that financial year. And then we consider them against the measures that the NAO expect to see in place, and also against our broader working with the authorities that we audit, not just locally, but nationally. And that all goes into forming this risk assessment. And what we're looking for is any catchy terminology, significant risks of significant weakness. So we look at the arrangements that are in place, make sure that they've operated consistently, make sure that they're fit for purpose, make sure that they the processes and procedures have been operated by the right people across the authority, and that you have the right level of oversight when making decisions, etc. And what we've determined is that we haven't identified any significant risks of significant weakness. And now, to a great extent, that's where our work finishes for value for money, because what you then subsequently get is effectively a repetition of the messages that we've got in this risk assessment through the audit finalisation report and then subsequently into the auditor's annual report, both of which are on the agenda with varying degrees of commentary around the edges. But the headline point that you should take assurance from is the fact that we haven't identified those significant risks of weakness in the arrangements. And that's detailed on page 124 of that risk assessment. And the NAO's guidance is very much structured that you don't get a formal opinion on value for money under this framework. You don't get a conclusion to say that you're good, outstanding, or requires improvement, or whatever the old Chloe arrangements was. It's very much just the commentary that ends up in the auditor's annual report that then gets published on your website. So just going through those domains in a little bit more detail from a value for money perspective. So the first section starts on page 125, and that's financial sustainability. So for us, we're looking there very much at the arrangements that you have in place for budget setting, identifying cost pressures, and the way that you're able to manage your capital programs, identify the projects that you're investing in, and effectively reporting and delivering against those as you go through the financial year. It's quite strange because it's focused very much on that one financial year. So we're looking at this in isolation rather than with context of brought forward balances and carried forward balances, which obviously applies to some of the capital projects that you would do. But as I said, we've not identified any specific issues in the arrangements around that. We have repeated a recommendation that I think was made previously by Grant Thornton as your previous auditors around the capital programme. It doesn't feature in the value for money risk assessment, but you'll see it in the ISA 260, the finalisation report, and it's just around there's been a history of some slippage over recent years against that ambitious programme, and we're just saying, you optically, how does that look? And also, is the programme that you're setting too ambitious against being able to deliver in one specific, in any one particular year? And we've just discussed that, but as I said, it's effectively the same recommendation that you've had previously. The governance arrangements are all around risk management and the work that you do with Alex, but just more generally on a day-to-day basis, the way that you consider information from peers, the way that you make decisions, whether you've got the right forums to discuss decision making, and we're satisfied with those arrangements. And then the final domain, which is that catchy improving economy, efficiency, effectiveness on page 130, is looking around how you are getting the most, how you're using information to manage your kind of your decision making on a day-to-day basis, the procurement arrangements that you have in place, partnership working. And again, we've not identified any specific issues, but we have talked to Sarah about opportunities to use benchmarking information and that type of information to find opportunities to make savings potentially in the future. Obviously, you've cleared off the low-hanging fruit, and it becomes more difficult to identify those opportunities. But that's included in the text. There's not a formal recommendation around that. So that's probably all I was planning on saying around the value for money work. I think the key thing is that what we will do now is, because we're in February 2025, we're going to literally leverage straight off the back of this, and I'd expect this risk assessment report for 24-25 to come through far earlier in the cycle, and then you'll get that kind of natural chronological reporting a bit more when you might expect to. So the conclusions should come through later in the calendar year rather than all being together, as has been the case this year. So that's the risk assessment. You're going to pick up the ISA 260.
Yep, thanks, Rick. Yes, the next report that I'll take is the ISA 260. The committee will remember that we brought this report to the September meeting, and in that report we noted there were a couple of things outstanding. They have all now been concluded, the most substantive element being the pension restatement, and that was all resulting from effectively new guidance that has come through over the course of the year and since the previous auditor had signed off. So whilst obviously it's a large number, it's something that is technical pension accounting, and we can elaborate on that if needed. Other than that, in terms of in that report, there's nothing new to report. There are no new adjustments beyond that. No new recommendations other than what was reported in September. But we've obviously just concluded on some elements that were outstanding at that point. As Richard just referred to, we have included our recommendation, or what we call performance improvement observation, with regard to the capital plan. Obviously, we'll follow that up as part of the VFM work next year. The other thing to draw attention to is obviously we will be charging some scope overrun for our ISA 315 work. Again, that was communicated in the September committee, and also some additional fee for the work we've done on the prior period restatement. But we'll be discussing that with management over the next couple of weeks.
I just say, so basically on the audit, that gets me to a position where once you sign the financial statements today, tomorrow, whenever it is, then we can issue unqualified opinions on the accounts, which is, we were saying in the pre-meeting, really positive position to be in. I know you've always been in that position at Newcastle, but many councils aren't in that position. So, when you put that report together with the value for money conclusions, I think it is a very positive position that you're in. Obviously, we have to continue to do the right level of work over the financial statements and scrutinise them, because the auditing standards don't take into account whether you're a good or what position you're in. But it's favourable to have clean opinions and full opinions as well, because there's many councils across the country who aren't in that situation. So I would just stress that.
Just checking there's no question on the I260.
I was checking that you spent.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Right, okay. Well, thanks. Obviously, that's very encouraging. I'm not saying I'm surprised because we've seen most of this before, so we knew that we could expect a very positive result. But do we have any questions for the auditors on the things? Yeah. Okay, Mike.
Not necessarily for the auditors themselves. Thank you, chaps, for the work, though. Do appreciate it. And congratulations to your team, I think, is probably the thing that we need to take out of this. We've been in the same trenches in the past, and it's great to see that you're still doing sterling work in there. Just picking up on it's always nice to find something. I'd be more concerned if there was nothing in your control deficiencies. But I think there's 3 that are rated at grade 2. Will that be something that's picked up during the year? So things like the review of internal value assumptions and review of actuarial assumptions. I think you've got some managerial response, but is that something that you'll pick up during the year?
Yeah, of course. So in relation to the pension side of things, we get 2 reports. So we get a report from the actuary, which is an estimate really just before the year ends, and then we'll get a report a couple of months after when, the actual report. And I think some of those bits that you're referring to is the difference between the estimate and in the actual report. Of course, obviously, we rely on the actuary to give us that information, but we'll always keep a keen eye on that. And if there's anything, we get bulletins through sometimes. If there's anything that we can pick up during that period or throughout the year, then yes, we certainly will.
Please pass on my thanks to the team.
Do we have any other questions? Anybody? Joan, go on.
I think it's quite sweet that you're mentioning increased costs as part of the risk assessment. Sorry. You mentioned benchmarking, just for the avoidance of doubt, good lawyer's phrase. Is that benchmarking against what we've done in the past, benchmarking against others comparable across the sector, or benchmarking nationally, or all 3?
Probably a bit of everything. I think we've asked specific questions, and so we've had some evidence back around, which is probably internal benchmarking, looking at trends over time. And what we can be a bit more pointed at as we go through the 24-25 work is asking you to demonstrate how you do the other elements, so the external comparison, the comparison with peers and national trends, etc. So I'm not suggesting you don't do that. We're just saying, as part of our going forward, there'll probably be more opportunities, I would imagine, where you use benchmarking to compare performance, and maybe that might underpin further decisions in the future.
If I could just come in and add a little bit to the benchmarking bit. So benchmarking that we have previously done, if we go back 3 years to the start of the One Council programme, we did a huge amount of benchmarking. Then that was ourselves against our nearest neighbours to actually compare our sort of services and really dig down as to what the fees and charges we were charging, what were the costs associated with providing that service. We did a huge amount of work then, and that was the starting point for the One Council programme, which we know was a success and generated a lot of savings for us. In addition to that, we have benchmarking in relation to sit for benchmarking. We still use that platform as well. We've done some of our own benchmarking when we set our fees and charges. So again, kind of going back to the One Council programme, this is this year actually for the fees and charges, but we were kind of struggling to find some information out around what other authorities charge for some of their fees and charges. Not every authority kind of clearly records their fees and charges on the website, etc. So having failed that, we actually did an FOI to the other authorities and sort of said, can you tell us what you are charging for various services, so that we could actually compare ourselves to them. We had quite a lot of response back from authorities to say, can you share your data with us? Whatever you get back from your FOI, can you please share with us, because they are all struggling as well. So our accountant that kind of did that was inundated with, you thought he was, kind of great. We've got some, data gathering here, but it ended up that everybody wanted to share the same data that we had, which is good really, because, we're all in the same boat. So that did help us with setting some of our fees and charges, and that is something that we will carry on, doing in the future.
Thank you for that. I think it's a really important thing to do because it contextualises it locally and nationally and wider. And I love the fact that you did an FOI. I've used them beautifully in the past myself, and it's just a wonderful little ace up the sleeve.
Thank you then. Do we have any other questions in relation to the audit? No? Well, in that case,
Chair, I suppose just to close our item.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's that final report, which is the auditor's annual report. I know Richard's also referred to it. There's nothing new in there. It effectively just summarises our work on the financial statements and then the value for money commentary. But it's obviously just to close that item off.
in that case then, is everybody happy for us to sign everything off? Yeah. Okay, excellent. So pass on my congratulations as well, Sarah, again to everybody. It's always good when we get a result like this, so we do appreciate it, I think, and to KPMG as well. I mean, we know it's a new venture for you, if you like, and there's always a lot of work involved, and extra on this particular occasion. So we're just really pleased that you've settled in, so to speak. So thank you for that. Item number 7 then is the work programme. You can find that on page 133. Does anybody have any questions or comments in relation to that? No? Okay. In that case then, item number 8 is urgent business, and we've not been informed of any urgent business. So thank you all for your attendance, and we'll close the meeting now. Thank you.